look at opening new markets and go after new segments. And the last one, as I mentioned earlier, most of the companies in the BPO industries, the arrows are coming to the Philippines. There are India-based companies coming to the Philippines, US-based companies coming to the Philippines. The beauty of this graph is, and I love it, is that this is a Filipino-based company now going global and reaching out. And I think it's an exciting slide, and it's almost a paradigm shift here, because normally you see a lot of expats coming to the Philippines over the last 10 years to take this industry to the next level, to help the local Filipino executives to get to the next level. But I believe the time has come, after 10 years of history of BPO industry here in the Philippines, that we have executives in our team now, local executives. So when we open our site in Nicaragua or Latin America or in China, that we'll be proudly sending Filipino expats going to those countries, setting this BPO operations up, and really helping the local communities there on how to do business in this industry. And I think it's a unique trend. It's not something that we cannot disregard. It's an opportunity that we'll create for our executives here to go to different places. You know, it's also breaking down the stereotypes. Normally you see Filipinos as the nurses or the doctors, or when you meet them, you know what they may be doing in those countries outside. I remember when I came here in 2002, and it was in the beginning of the BPO industry, and people would ask me, Ikaw, Bombay, and I didn't know what that meant. I'm like, no, I'm from Denver, Colorado. But that was the stereotype about the Indians at that time. And now you see so many of us here that you know that they could be BPO executives. But imagine doing the same thing with the Filipino executives, being the knowledge workers, reaching out to the world and really taking what they have learned here and sharing it to the world. And I think that's a beautiful thing that could happen here as we expand our operations globally. So that's kind of the overview of SPI. I feel quite comfortable with what we have and how we are prepared to go to the next level. The next slide actually talks about the DNA of the next generation BPO company. You know, we talked about challenges and the trends taking place in the world, especially in the BPO industry. We talked about how SPI Global is embraced for those changes. But then if you think about what each and every BPO industry and BPO company would have to do to be prepared for the next 6 to 10 years, it's very clear. It's 3 things in my mind. And it's quite coincidental that it matches S, P, and I. So starting with S. If you want to be a next generation BPO company, you will have to be solution-centric. And what that means is we'll have to figure out creating value for our clients. And I'll give you an example. 10 years ago, when I was a vendor myself, and I was on the client side before I lost my mind and I went to the vendor side, my main focus working with the vendors was getting the best price I can, because I was responsible for the cost center. My boss was looking and say, hey, can you reduce your cost? But over the last 8 years, things are changing. The people who are negotiating with us now are close to the C-suite. These people have P&L responsibility. I don't know how many of you know Jack Jones from JP Morgan Chase. I know he's a very popular guy and comes here quite often, but those of you who know him, he's the great example of what's happening in the marketplace. Jack Jones is responsible for JP Morgan Chase's global outsourcing strategy. And he's not looking at just the cost. He's looking at how can I create value for JP Morgan Chase by creating more customer base, by retaining my customers higher, and by getting higher ARPU from my customers. And that is what I see everywhere right now. So companies would have to go from being cost-centric and focusing on reducing the price to how you can create value for your clients. Because if you can create the values for your client, then they are going to give you more business. The next one is people-centric. This is a very people-intensive business. I was in a meeting within the PLDT group, and for PLDT, this is a unique business. They look at my revenue per FT, and they look at their revenue per FT, and it's like night and day. And they couldn't believe that I got 14,000 people generating $200 million because they got 8,000 people generating $3 billion. So it's a very people-intensive business we are in. And unless we are a people-centric company and we are nurturing our leaders, we won't succeed going into the next 5 to 6 years. And the last one is, and probably the most important one, is we'll have to be innovation-centric. And what that means is fostering creativity, but also fostering entrepreneurship in this country where people feel empowered to take their creative ideas and manifest them. Because that's what the world is doing. That's what India is doing. That's what you will see Egypt doing now. That's what you see China doing it. So somehow, one way or the other, in the Philippines, we'll have to figure out a way to create some innovation and then allow our employees to go out and manifest those ideas in reality. So, as I said, since the company is SPI, somehow, one way or the other, we figure out a way to create the 3 themes that ends up being SPI. So I have, in the next few slides, I have given 3 or so examples on what this means in reality, because I think it's one thing to really say, hey, let's be solution-centric. It's another thing to say, let's be people-centric or innovation-centric. But how is it playing out in our day-to-day job at SPI Global? So let's go to the very first example. I'm giving you a case study of a client we have, a largest pay TV provider in the US, has been a client with us for almost 8 years now. And I have seen that client evolve over the last 8 years because I was with the client in 2002 and now I'm here. So all the hard work I did in negotiating a really, really tough contract is a payback time for me right now. So, talk about karma and how it plays and comes and bites you in the back. But we started the relationship with this client in 2002. And at that time, it was purely a labor arbitrage play. The client was looking for cost savings, and instantly, by giving us business with 50 people at that point, they saved roughly 40% on the labor costs. So it was a good deal for them, good deal for the company here, and it worked out well. Over the next few years, it started evolving. After them sending just the basic work modules to us, they asked us, hey, can you improve the processes? So the next phase was process improvement. And we talked about improving their dialer strategy for their outbound projects. We worked with them on their workforce utilization. And so there was a process improvement aspect of that evolution. The next phase was process re-engineering. So it was not about taking something and making it marginally better. It was creating new things that would make their life easier, that would add value. So there are some examples of what we did for them. We created a new quality form that really empowers our salespeople to focus on selling versus worrying about if they are going to get dinged in their quality forms. And it changed the numbers dramatically. We created a new automated sales tracking. It took away all the effort that our team leaders and the agents were putting in creating manual trackers. And we also created a new callback process using email. We sent emails to our clients or the customers and say, hey, what is a good time to call you because we really want to close the deal with you. And that increased the sales performance for the clients as well. So it went through labor arbitrage, process improvements, process re-engineering to the last phase, which is value creation. And now when you look at the numbers versus what it was 8 years ago, we are adding roughly 400 incremental sales per month. And if you add up the average revenue per month for that particular client, we are talking about $100 million of revenue incrementally for the client. So when they understood that, you know what, I don't want to pay the company based on per minute or per hour. I should be paying the company based on whether they're creating more sales for me. It also changed my pricing model. So if you click that, yep. So the pricing in 2002 was based on transaction. Even for sales split, they were giving me money per minute. It had nothing to do whether I was selling or not. Now, the pricing model is completely different. It's based on whether I'm creating value for that organization or not. Guess what? It's win-win for both. They're obviously getting a lot more money from the revenue that we generate for them. And we are happy because on top of what we are getting, now we are getting commissions on each and every sale. And our employees are directly getting commission from the client. So this is a good example of how a BPO industry is evolving here in the Philippines and how we need to continue doing that across the board. So that's one example. The next one is SPI Healthcare Academy. We all know this is a place to be if you are looking for medical professionals. And there are 45,000 medical professionals, nurses and doctors coming out of school every year. And we believe that given our intensive focus on the healthcare as a vertical, we can truly move some of the work we are doing in the US out of the Philippines. So we recently launched SPI Healthcare Academy, and we are essentially taking our key employees that we hire through various courses in healthcare. There is obviously certification for coding. That's number one. We are also assigning these people in the Philippines with mentors in the US because we have roughly 500 FTEs in the US who are certified coders, and they are certified to help us in the revenue cycle management. And number three, we are creating an online continuous education process for these employees. So net of this is we are creating a new industry within the Filipino BPO industry, because when you think about healthcare, you think of medical transcription. But there is so much more to the healthcare than only doing the medical transcription. I think what we are talking about here actually prepares the Filipino employees to creating high value, high margin work that is not being done today in the country. So this is an example of how we are creating a solution that would add value to the clients.